I am especially pleased and honored to be introducing the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Somaliland, Dr. Mohammed Abdullahi Omar. He and I have had the chance to meet before in Somaliland, I'm pleased to say. And I'm also pleased to say I told him that we, here at IRI, we work in about 55 countries, and we always say there are 4 or 5 that steal your heart. And Somaliland, for me, has become one of them. And the reason is because of the tremendous achievements of Somaliland over these past, especially 10, 12 years, both in terms of economics, in terms of building up their country, and in terms of the politics. I was saying that when you go to Hargeisa Airport, in one of the waiting rooms is a picture, a map, and on the map is a picture of Hargeisa in the mid-1990s, and it looks like Dresden. And today you are hard-pressed to find any evidence that there was ever any fighting in Hargeisa. Everything has been completely built. The economy is moving mainly agriculture, but they're doing a very fine job. What impressed us most being in the democracy business was the conduct of the elections. Amongst many other things that we praised was a program to involve college kids in the elections. The University of Hargeisa and other universities had mainly young women, I have to say, at almost every polling place. And in many places they were the chairs of the polling places. And they were very conscious on election day, especially at turning away those who were trying to vote, young people, very young people, who really should not have been voting. But that was quite something to see. Most impressive, and Peter remarked upon this, Peter found, was after the election how orderly the transfer of power from an incumbent to a challenger was. And that is something that we at IRI wish we saw in many, many more countries. So we at IRI have become big fans of Somaliland. We, as I said, are very honored to welcome the foreign minister here. Peter Pham, who's an old friend of IRI, is going to do the formal introduction. Peter comes to us from the Atlantic Council, where he is head of their new Center on Africa. Previously, he was with the National Committee on American Foreign Policy in New York. He's also taught at the Nelson Institute at James Madison University and served, I'm pleased to say, as a senior advisor on Africa to Senator John McCain's campaign in 2008. He's a much-published writer, as you all no doubt know, and he also serves on the advisory group of AFRICOM. Peter, thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Lauren, for the introduction, and thank you to IRI for not only hosting this forum for the foreign minister of the Republic of Somaliland, but really for the long-term engagement that IRI has done in Somaliland with help to the political parties, monitoring the presidential and legislative elections, and then, of course, the presidential election last year that I was privileged to be part of the IRI team observing. If I can prevent a word, since I don't speak for IRI, a little partisan commentary. In addition to the wonderful transition that Somaliland has given us, I think we ought to start sending congressional delegations to Somaliland to learn about fiscal policy. The administration that the foreign minister serves in actually proved that you can triple government revenue by slashing by more than half the percentage of the income tax. They cut it from 28% down to 12% and tripled their collections and now provide universal free elementary education for students. So maybe there's something to be learned in that as well. But it's a real pleasure to just introduce Mohammed Abdullahi Omar, the Minister of Affairs and International Cooperation for Somaliland. He was appointed last July after Ahmed Mohammed Solano of the Peace, Unity, and Development, the Kumia Party, was elected president in that country's election. Dr. Omar was previously the Foreign Affairs Advisor to the Kumia Party for several years, where he articulated its foreign policy strategy. He's a graduate of the University of Nottingham with an MA in Urban Policy and earned his PhD from the University of Birmingham. He's taught at the Brunel in the UK, as well as the Institute for Education at the University of London. Prior to his work in of Somaliland. He's also a senior education policy advisor to the Birmingham City Council. Published on a wide variety of topics, including democracy, current events, strategic relations, and a number of papers. And I think it's a real treat and an honor for us to hear him on the latest developments in Somaliland as well as in that critical region of the Horn. Minister.
Thank you very much, Peter, for that introduction. It is a great pleasure for me as a foreign minister of the government of Somaliland to be here today and to speak to justice. I'm going to worry about a lot of Somaliland and politics, and a lot of you are well informed about the history of Somaliland. What I want to highlight a few minutes about Somaliland's progress, Somaliland's challenges, and Somaliland's views about the way forward for us and also for the region, because we are a part of a broader region that is in turmoil at the moment. Somaliland has a functioning democracy. We have, as you are all aware, a government that has been directly elected by the people of Somaliland. We have a parliament that is elected and kept accountable by people of Somaliland. In fact, we have had a couple of successful elections, parliamentary elections, presidential elections, and local council elections. But we also have had a peaceful transfer of power from a losing party to a winning party. And I wanted to give here a tribute to the previous government of Somaliland for the way in which they have handed over power to my party, who won elections last year. That's a credit to the people of Somaliland, and that's a consistent pattern in the political behavior of the people of Somaliland. The question is, what made Somaliland so distinctive from Somalia in the way that the Somali political affairs have been last 2 days? One of the key issues here are the SNM, the former Somali national movement that has liberated Somaliland from the former regime of Siad Barre, has been very effective and very clear about their ideas. And when the former Somali state collapsed in 1991, SNM was clearly the leaders in Somaliland, and they have been able to manage the aspirations of the people of Somaliland and deliver on a number of important objectives they had. But that was not possible in Somalia. When the former regime left and has been defeated, there were too many groups in Somalia, and there wasn't a clear victor in Somali political affairs. You had a number of competing political groups, often armed groups, and they were unable to manage their differences, and there wasn't a clear winner. And then you have, from there, Somalia has never been stable. You have warlords after that who were running the affairs in Somalia, and now you have got radical groups, Islamists, Al-Shabaab, that have full control of the bulk of Somalia. Unfortunately, Somalia has never had a stable period of time for the last 20 years. I think one of the key issues that make Somaliland to succeed, apart from the one political group, SNM, is the idea that Somaliland want to have a nation state. We all united to have our own nation state. We were all committed to the objective that we all subscribe to. Having a well-defined goal helps people to unite and work together. That was an issue which can be understood democratic. But also the approach we have taken for conflict resolution and peace building and state building was a bottom-up approach, whereby people had equal access to that process from 1991 up till now. And that bottom-up approach, which involves a less international involvement, as such will be very helpful for the people of Somaliland. But in Somalia, the peace process has been, and I think to some extent it still is, a product of an international ideas, international interventions, international views. And the political class in Mogadishu has been negatively rewarded for quite a long time. They have been allowed to continue with their administration despite the fact that actually they haven't delivered. I'll tell you an example. TFG went in Kenya in 2004. That's more than 6 years. One of the key tasks they have been given was to deliver the international committee as transitional tasks. And one of the main tasks was to engage a reconciliation process among the political stakeholders in Somalia. They haven't achieved that task up until now. Another task was to draft a constitution that is acceptable to all Somalis. That's not been achieved. Another task was to have, at the end of the transition, which was meant to be 4 years, to have an elected government at the end of that process. We are now more than 6 years, and Somalia is far from having a democratic reform, political parties, and elections. Yet the international community kept rewarding the TFG. They just had another year of extension. And this time, the international community has become very tough and become very vocal and very critical of the TFG, and they want TFG to deliver all those tasks that was expecting of them over 6 years to deliver in 10 or 11 months. I don't think that's realistic. I don't think that's achievable either. But it shows you that there is no vision, there is no ideas, and there is no commitment from the Somali political actors in moving the Somali question forward. But that's the distinction. And I just talked about what made Somaliland possible. I think it's the idea of forming a nation state, the idea that they want to behave as a country, act as a country, and work as a country has been demonstrated over and over by having a free and fair elections, by broadening the political space for people of Somaliland, and by working with the international community on a number of issues. Another subject I want to touch upon is the role that Somaliland government takes in the regional and international affairs. Somaliland is a part of solution when you talk about the war on terror. We have been very active in fighting against terrorists. Al-Shabaab has indeed attacked Somalia a couple of times. The last time was in 2008, Somalia's presidential powers, a number of key foreigners in Gaza having been attacked by terrorists, and a lot of people lost their lives. Somaliland has been attacked and still under attack. It's mainly because the values that we stand for, values, democracy, equality, the rule of law. Al-Shabaab and other terrorists do not think democracy is the best way to manage a country. They actually think it's an alien values that we, Somaliland, as predominantly a Muslim country, shouldn't actually adopt. But our people, our government, and our community are fully committed to promoting democracy. And I'm glad that IRA has witnessed that democratic reform. And it was a pleasure to have you in Somalia.